was an interesting Thursday night of NBA playoff action. The second round matchups are almost set, and it should be a pretty busy weekend of NBA action coming up. To talk with me about that is a good friend of mine. I haven't seen him in a long time around the New York sports writing scene. My man Mike Mazzeo, freelance sports writer. You've seen his work on many different places, The Ringer, also in Forbes as well too. Mike, long time no see. What's up? Thank you for joining the NBA Exchange.
Dex, thank you so much for having me. Congratulations on the new show. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, man. Just hanging in there, trying to find unique angles. Like we were talking about before the show, everything is on Zoom, so everybody kind of has the same quotes. So you're trying to find those unique story angles going into games and features and columns and all that kind of stuff. So, hanging in there and enjoying the reporting grind as usual.
Enjoying the reporting grind as usual. And thank you, man. You were one of the first people to show me some love when I was starting the show. And I said I definitely have to have you on. So I'm glad to definitely have you here. Now, let's get into the games and the actions from last night. I'm sure you were glued to it among the many sports that you were watching last night. But the Lakers, the defending champions, they are out. They have been eliminated by the Phoenix Suns. The Suns winning the series in 6 games. And there's a lot of talk about what went down. LeBron James, for the first time in his career, lost in the first round. Let's look at the Lakers side of this first. A lot of people looking at what happened. Is it injuries? Was it roster construction? What went wrong with the Lakers this year?
Yeah, I mean, look, they were 21-6 kind of when all the injuries first started. And so they were sort of on that trend where you thought, I was talking to Magic Johnson about first story on Kyrie Irving, and he said, and I asked him, what's your dream scenario? And he said, Nets, Lakers. I want to see KD, Kyrie, James Harden, LeBron James, and Anthony Davis play a series with all those guys healthy. And unfortunately, that just never materialized. And I think that's going to be a theme throughout the playoffs is it not only going to be the most talented team and maybe the last team standing in terms of health? And so those injuries, especially Anthony Davis, going down, they're up 2-1. It looks like they're going to take the series. He gets hurt and everything flips. And I think they were outscored by 50 points after he got hurt the rest of the series. So, I think it's a combination of the Lakers' injuries. Again, like you talked about, their supporting cast, Andre Drummond not delivering, Dennis Schroeder being inconsistent, having that 0-for-9 game, I believe in game 5, which was disappointing given what he had talked about. Hey, I want to be a starter from day one. I don't want this, contract extension. I think I'm worth more money than $20 million a year and not delivering. So that was tough. And, you give credit to Phoenix too, right? Because they traded for Chris Paul. They hadn't made the playoffs in a long time. Monty Williams did a tremendous job as their coach. Devin Booker looks like a superstar in the making with 47 points. So I think you look at the Lakers and say, if this team was healthy, they had all the ingredients because, again, those guys make their teammates better. If Anthony Davis is his all-NBA self, LeBron is 100%. I mean, how much better are Dennis Schroeder and Andre Drummond? Those guys are going to be better because they have going to be playing lesser roles. So, it feels like a lost opportunity for the Lakers, regardless of what their roster construction was. But again, credit the Suns. They came in. It was a smack-talking series, and the Suns backed it up.
That's true. Absolutely. They backed it up. And speaking of the Suns, you talked about the good play of Devin Booker. You talked about Chris Paul leading his team, although doing it with one arm and being injured, right? Mike, the Suns, how real are they? I think a lot of people still weren't picking them to win the series outside of my producer, Greg, who picked the Suns to win in 7. But how good are the Suns? Do you still see this now as they beat the Lakers? Can they get to the NBA Finals?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why not. They have everything. Aiden has taken huge leaps. They've got a guy who can protect the paint and score inside. Miles Bridges has been a two-way stud for them. Again, you look at their backcourt, right there with Kyrie and James as arguably the best backcourt in the NBA, the way that Devin Booker has taken off. I mean, he's hitting all these threes last night. Again, he's another guy talking trash, backing up his words. And you have to respect that. A young kid they can build around. And again, he was a guy that didn't have that playoff pedigree. You wonder, is he just compiling on a bad team? No. In fact, you bring Chris Paul in, who's changed the franchise, just like he did in OKC, LA, kind of everywhere Chris Paul's been. He hasn't gotten over that championship hump. Again, I think you look back to that series against the Warriors. If he's healthy those final 2 games, does the narrative on him change? Does the narrative on James Harden change? But again, the Suns have as much talent as anybody. They've got a great coach, a great system, and they're confident. And I don't see why they can't, make that run.
Yeah, they're going to absolutely be dangerous. Let's flip over to another series that ended last night, a series where we didn't see a lot of defense played, and that's the Blazers and the Nuggets. The Blazers eliminated. They had over a 10-point lead in the third quarter. Saw that evaporating. Jokic did his thing in the fourth. The Nuggets advanced to the next round. Let's talk with the Blazers first. There's going to be a lot of talk on the Blazers. We saw the double nickel game in Game 5 from Damian Lillard. The Blazers just haven't got it done, right? Terry Stotts, they've lost a lot in the first round outside of the 1 year where they went to the Western Conference Finals. Do you see changes coming for this Blazer team as they look to move forward?
Yeah, I mean, certainly there was a lot of rumblings about Terry Stotts' job security. Whether they make a change, I don't necessarily know, but certainly there's been rumblings about that. So you could see that happening. And then I think Stotts would be extremely coveted by a lot of teams, given his pedigree and success that he had there in a smaller market. But I think for the Blazers, it all comes down to what Damian Lillard wants. Does his extension's about to kick in? Does he say, hey, I want out of here? Certainly that Chris Haynes article, I think on Yahoo Sports right before the playoffs began, raised a lot of eyebrows because Chris is as plugged into Dame as anybody. And so when he says something, that there's meaning behind that, there's reporting behind that. And so it seemed like Dame was not exactly thrilled with his supporting cast. And I think that showed up in the playoffs. I mean, when he has that 58-point game and they're losing in double OT, that's pretty devastating to a superstar player. How many more changes can we make? Did they decide to break up the backcourt? Can they move somebody in the front court? I don't know. But, they certainly have, Neil O'Shea has some big decisions ahead, whether it's, the head coaching spot, or Damian Lillard, can they get him the coach he wants? Is there something that they can do to change his mind? Do they trade CJ McCollum and try to get a big? They need defense, obviously. We know that. They're one of the worst defensive teams. Like you said, there's no defense played. How you can score the ball as consistently as they have and can't get out of the first round again against a very good Denver team. There's some decisions to be made there, and they might be in a rebuilding process if they have to move him.
Let's look at the Nuggets, right? The Nuggets, we talked about injuries with the Lakers. With the Nuggets, no Jamal Murray. No Will Barton, no PJ Dozier, and they still find a way to win this series behind Jokic doing his MVP-like things. How good of impressive have the Nuggets been to you in this playoffs, and what do you think they can do in the next round where they'll play the Suns?
Right. I mean, they've been incredible. Jokic probably deserves MVP just start to finish. There was a lot of conversation of Embiid, James Harden at one point, but he was the guy that stayed healthy, from start to finish, and that's certainly key. And that, again, might be that last team standing in terms of health. So, give him all the credit in the world. Mike Malone has done a phenomenal job. I mean, their backcourt is Carpazzo and Austin Rivers, the former Knick cast-off. And Austin's hitting huge shots, and his confidence is incredible. And they picked up Aaron Gordon, obviously. And Michael Porter Jr. looks like a star in the making. That 22-point first quarter really set the tone last night. So, you have to respect their depth. I think they've done a phenomenal job building the roster. And again, like you said, I mean, if they have Jamal Murray and Will Barton, we could be talking about a team, and they still might make the finals, but we're talking about a team, top to bottom talent-wise is perhaps the best in the league.
Yeah, absolutely. What the Nuggets have done, it's almost like they haven't missed a beat since Jamal Murray went out. Let's move over to the East. Second round matchups in the East already set. First one that everybody's going to be talking about, Bucks versus Nets. And the Nets, the offense was humming in the first round. The Bucks swept the Miami Heat. I don't think a lot of people saw that coming. Nice revenge for them. But now this is a team that can provide some defense in the Bucks against the Nets and could provide some challenges for them that a lot of people are talking about. How do you see this series going? And give me a prediction. Who do you like in this second round matchup, Bucks or Nets?
Right. So I think, it could be an all-time matchup, and it could decide who wins the finals because both these teams are absolutely loaded. They've both taken injuries. Dante DiVincenzo for the Bucks was a fantastic player. I think he had 15 rebounds against the Nets in their last matchup. That's a key loss. Brooklyn is dealing with, Jeff Green's plantar fascia injury. Seems like there's some optimism there, but we'll see because that injury, and I don't want to go too off topic here, that Joe Johnson shot 2 for 14 with plantar fasciitis in Game 7 against the Bulls, and we know what that led to. Jason Kidd, the big trade, and the rebuilding project. Unfortunately, that had to happen as a result of all that. But, the Nets are back. Their big three is humming. I think they average 86 points against the Celtics in the first round. All those guys are healthy, which is key. The Bucks, with Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton and Giannis can give them huge problems. Milwaukee took 2 of 3. The Nets' big three didn't play together in any of those games. But again, I mean, Milwaukee can rebound. They're physical. A lot of the things that the Nets have weaknesses in are the Bucks' strengths. So I think, who does it come down to? I think the Nets win in 7. I think home court advantage is huge. And the fact that the Nets have 3 stars that can, take over the game late, go in isolation, move the ball, and then shoot free throws. I mean, all those guys shot 91% or better in the first round. So I think it's a huge topic because, again, Giannis, if there's one flaw in his game, it's the shooting, right? So the Nets have pretty much dared him to take jump shots in the regular season. He averaged 40 points. So it worked, for him, but he shot 1 for 16 from 3 in the first round. He's shooting 33% on jumpers. I think, again, the Nets' best way to guard him will be not to guard him and dare him to take those jump shots and hope he misses, because you know he's going to get 30, but you hope he doesn't get into that 40 or 50-point range, because then you're in trouble.
Nets in 7. All right, moving on to the other East series. We got the Hawks versus the Sixers. Now, a lot of this talk, Mike, is going to come down to what is the health status of Joel Embiid. Right now, he's day-to-day with a meniscus tear, which is unbelievable to me. It's a meniscus tear, or slightly torn meniscus, I should say. But he's day-to-day. We do not know yet what his availability is going to be for this series. So I think making a prediction is kind of hard for all of us in terms of this series. But how do you see this playing out, even if Embiid is unable to go?
Right. Look, I think, I think the Sixers are going to win the series if Joel is healthy. But again, that's a huge question mark. And, can Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris and Seth Curry, pick up the slack? Obviously, again, not necessarily inside, but just the scoring and production he provides. So if Joel is healthy, I'd say, Sixers in 6. But if not, and it doesn't look like it, I mean, certainly you could definitely see a Hawks upset with the way Trae Young is playing. I just wonder with Atlanta, their supporting cast, Gallinari was so inconsistent. Bogdanovic is a phenomenal player. And again, if he's with Milwaukee, maybe we're talking about something different in terms of who's the favorite in that series, because the Bucks tried to get him. It didn't work out. The Hawks were the beneficiaries of that, and he's been tremendous. I know Clint Capella, talks us back in the Knicks series. Again, he backed it up with his defensive play and his rim protection. So, if Joel is injured, and not at 100%, and who knows what his availability is, all bets are off. But, again, if he's able to somehow play through this series, get their, go through the treatment and rehab, I like the Sixers in the series.
All right, you like the Sixers in the series. I was trying to see if you would go with my producer, Greg, who is going for the underdog. He's got the Hawks in 6.
It wouldn't shock me. Wouldn't shock me at all.
So Hawks in 6 wouldn't shock you at all?
No, because, again, you talked about the Suns. People picking the Suns before. I mean, if the Lakers are healthy, who knows how that works out? If those guys are 100%, they weren't. And the Suns took advantage of that with their phenomenal play. So, I don't want to bet against Trae Young right now, because anybody that goes into the Garden and plays the villain like he did and hits the big shots and is shushing the crowd and bowing to the crowd there, because that was a raucous crowd at MSG. I mean, I wasn't at the games, but just seeing it on TV, I'm sure you thought the same. It was tremendous, and I respect the heck out of the kid. And that Luka, Trae Young talk is going to last for 15 years, and Trae Young's right there right now with the way that he played against that Knicks team.
No, it absolutely was. I was actually at Game 5, and the fans were still giving it to Trae Young. The last series that we do not know who the matchup is actually going to be. We know Utah will be in there, but we don't know if they will play either the Clippers or the Mavericks. Tonight, Game 6, Clippers-Mavericks. This series, Mike, has been really hard to predict. The road team has won every game. The team is yet to win on their home floor. Mavericks back home tonight with the 3-2 lead in the series. How do you see this Game 6 playing out? Mavs or Clippers winning tonight?
I think the Clippers will win tonight, but then I think the Mavs will win the series. That's my bet. But who again, like you said, who knows? Who knows? Really? I just love, the Lucas story is incredible. He's basically a one-man band right now. With Kristaps Porzingis struggling, injured, not 100%, timid, whatever you want to call it, has not been himself. The guy that at least Knicks fans at his peak knew, and a lot of, even in his Mavericks tenure, a guy who can give you 20 and 10. The way he's struggling, you've got Tim Hardaway, who's considered an albatross. He looks like a guy that could resign. He's been tremendous. The supporting cast just, doesn't stand out to you on paper, but, Luka is that transcendent player that can single-handedly carry his team. He's doing it right now. And again, it's very reminiscent of LeBron in his Cleveland days, his first finals run. That supporting cast was not great either, but he carried the load. So that'd be incredible too, because again, then you'd have all the questions, Kawhi's future. They signed Paul George long-term, but, does Kawhi decide he wanted to come home? It hasn't worked. 0-for-2 if they get ousted. So, does he look elsewhere? Do the Heat somehow get involved? Do the Knicks somehow get involved? Again, there's just so much revolving around this series, because, if they lose, that would mean, Doc Rivers couldn't get it done. Ty Lue couldn't get it done. Two of the best coaches, won titles, could not get it done with this roster. So there's going to be huge changes if the Clippers lose. And there's certainly going to be a lot of memes on Twitter as well.
There absolutely is. Look, no matter who you think's winning tonight, all the pressure is absolutely on the Clippers. The Clippers, there's so much pressure on them. And we're going to be watching for those memes as well. Mike, first time on the NBA Exchange. Thank you for joining me. We hope to have you back, man.
Dex and Greg, my pleasure. Thank you so much, guys. And have a great rest of the day. And let's enjoy these playoffs here.